Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jam Vishpad Paramahamsa Pravijikacharya Sotara Sata Shishimadesi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishpad Paramahamsa Pravijikacharya Sotara Sata Shishimadesi Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishpad Paramahamsa Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Imam Vishnu Padai Krishna Pastai Mutlai Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Vacharni Vishesha Shrimad Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're getting to hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, 31st chapter, text number 22. Last instruction or verse from Narada Muni to the Prachetas. Shriyam Anucharatim Tad Artinash Cha Dvipada Patin Vibudhamsh Cha Yat Sapurna Na Bhajati Nija Britya Varga Tantra Katam Amum Udrishjait Puman Kritagya. Would you do the honors? You have a microphone?
Hare Krishna. Shriyam anuchadatim tadartinascha
Shriyam anucharatim tadartinascha
Dvipadapatin vibodangshcha yat swapurnaha
Dvipodapatin vibrodhamscha yat spapurna
Nabhajati nijabritya varga tantra
Nabhajati nijabritya varga tantra
Katamumam udn visujait puman kritagyaha
Katam amum udrishajait pumam kritagya
Shriyam anuchadatim tadartinascha
Shriyam anucharitim tadartinascha
Dvipadapatin vibodangshcha yat swapurnaha
Dvipadaputin vibudhamscha yat supurna
Nabhajati nijabritya varga tantra
Nabhajati nijabritya varga tantra
Katamumam udn visujait puman kritagyaha.
Katam amum udrishajait pumam kritagya.
Chant.
Please.
Someone else want to try?
Shriyam anucharitim tadartinascha Dvipadapatin vidhamscha yat sapurna Nabhajati nijabritya varga tantra Katam amum udrishajait pumam kritagya. Shriyam anucharatim tadartinascha Nijabritya varga tantra Katam amum udrishajait pumam kritagya. Shriyam, the goddess of fortune, Anucharatim, who follows him, Tat, of her, Artinaha, those who aspire to get the favor, cha, and Dvipadapatim, rulers of the human beings. Vibhudan, demigods, cha, also, yet, because. Swapurnaha, self-sufficient. Na, never. Bhajati, cares for. Nija, own. Prityavarga, the ink's a little messed up. On his devotees? Is that what? On his devotees. Tantra, dependent. Katam, how? Amum, him. Udrishrajat, can give up. Puman, a person. Kritagya, grateful. Translation. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is self-sufficient, he becomes dependent on his devotees. He does not care for the goddess of fortune, nor for the kings and demigods who are after the favors of the goddess of fortune. Where's that person who is actually grateful and will not worship the personality of Godhead? Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is worshipped by all materialistic men, including big kings and demigods in heaven. Lakshmi, however, is always after the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though he does not require her service. Brahma Samhita says that the Lord is worshipped by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune, but the Supreme Lord does not require service from any of them, because if he so desires, he can produce millions of goddesses of fortune through his spiritual energy, the pleasure potency. This very personality of Godhead, out of his causeless mercy, becomes dependent on the devotees. How fortunate, then, is a devotee who is thus favored by the personality of Godhead. What ungrateful devotee will not worship the Lord and enter into his devotional service? Actually, a devotee cannot forget his obligation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead even for a single moment. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that both the Supreme Lord and his devotee are rasagya, full of transcendental humor. The mutual attachment between the Supreme Lord and his devotee is never to be considered material. It always exists as a transcendental fact. There are 8 types of transcendental ecstasy, known as bhava, anubhava, sayi bhava, and so on. These are discussed in the Nectar Devotion. Those who are unaware of the position of the living entity and the Supreme Person, Krishna, think that the mutual attachment between the Lord and his devotees is a creation of the material energy. Factually, such attachment is natural, both for the Supreme Lord and for the devotee, and it cannot be accepted as material. We could pray together, please. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gnanjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Kabhayam Dadati Swapadandikam Pandeham Shri Guru Shiyuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I'd like to start out trying to glorify Shri or Laxmi Devi. The premise is that Krishna is completely self-satisfied, Atma Rama. He doesn't need the service of Laxmi Devi. He doesn't need the service of any of us. Quite a statement he has. Hundreds and millions of goddesses of fortune in Vrindavan serving him, but he doesn't need any of their service because he could create millions more from his pleasure potency. All the goddesses of fortune we're referring to are the gopis, the topmost devotees of Krishna, as confirmed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And all these gopis, as Lord Brahma says in the Brahma Samhita, are expansions of Srimati Radharani. Aspects of her personality become embodied in each and every one of the thousands, millions, billions of gopis. So from his pleasure potency, if he wanted, he could take away all the gopis except Srimati Radharani. She's inseparable from him, being his pleasure potency. Two combined, one expanded into two. But she could create millions and billions more. But here we're hearing about Laxmi Devi. And sometimes, we talk about her like, yeah, Laxmi Devi, all these fools are chasing after her. They want the money. Money's the honey. Money's the key to all sense gratification. If money can't buy you happiness, you don't know what store to look in. They have all these misconceptions, these animal-like fools. But in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's some nice glorification of Shri, of Laxmi Devi. Narada Muni is looking for the greatest devotee in the first section of Srimad Bhagavatam. He wants to get their dust, he wants to get their mercy. Then there's hope for him to perform devotional service pleasing to Krishna. He's gone to Shiva, convinced he was the greatest one. And Shiva's going, no. The Vaikuntha Vasis, they're the greatest devotees. You should go and take their darshan. See how exalted, how surrendered, how qualified they are in their services to Narayan. And after a bit of hearing the glories of the Vaikuntha Vasis, Mother Parvati interrupts and she says, wait a minute. Of all the Vrajvasis, Laxmi Devi is the queen. She's the supreme devotee, servant of Narayan. And she begins to describe that her mercy expands wherever she casts her sidelong glance. Thus the rulers of the various planets obtain their powers, their knowledge, their detachment, and their devotion. So we shouldn't just peg-hole Laxmi Devi into thinking all she gives is money. No, she's the goddess of fortune, and so much can be categorized in that fortune. She gives knowledge, detachment, and even bhakti to the leaders of the universe. There's an interesting quote in this purport here from the Vishnu Purana, where Durvasa Muni told Indra, where there is patience, opulence arises. And patience also follows opulence. But how can those not favored by the goddess Shri have patience? Without patience, how can they have good qualities? It's very interesting because it's one of the 6 pillars of pure devotional service given by Rupa Goswami. Utsaha Nischaya Dharya. Enthusiasm, confidence, or determination and patience. And here it's being described, Mother Shri, Laxmi Devi, can help us in this way, bestowing upon us patience. We don't want any of her material opulences. We're not interested in that. We want the opulence of devotional service to Krishna, full surrender. That's the topmost aspiration. Just please let me have the association of devotees and render service unto you that will please you. So, Srimati Radharani is the, how would you say, fountainhead of all other expansions of Shri, of the feminine potency. Next comes Rukmini Devi, the queens of Dwarka after the gopis. From her comes Laxmi Devi, the queen of Narayan. Unlimited Narayans, and that Mahalakshmi expands herself into unlimited Lakshmis to serve. And then whenever the Lord engages in pastimes in this world, descends as an avatar, she also descends with him. She always accompanies him. If he ascends as a full-on avatar, Vishnu Tattva, then she's right there, Sri Tattva, his eternal consort. If he incarnates as a demigod, then she incarnates as a demigoddess. If he apparently incarnates in human form, then she takes the form of a human. Always wanting to be with her husband. Even though this verse is saying he's completely detached. But she engaged in, what was it, tens of thousands of years of austerity and penances, worshiping her Lord, so that she could get his mercy. We don't want to spend too much time on that, but she was hoping to get a glimpse of the mercy of Krishna. Her husband, Vishnu Narayan, in his sweetest form, who engages in the sweetest pastimes, etc. She couldn't get it. She couldn't get that mercy. She couldn't enter into the Rasa Leela or into the Vraja pastimes. The wives of the Kaliya serpent, they have one verse saying, "O Lord, we do not know how the serpent Kali has attained this great opportunity of being touched by the dust of your lotus feet. For this end, the goddess of fortune performed austerities for centuries, giving up all of their desires and taking austere vows." So, of course, she eternally stays with the Lord as a golden hair upon his chest. She's with him, massaging his feet. Isn't she the example of perfection in Padasevana, worshiping the Lord by serving his lotus feet? That's Laxmi Devi. She has her own sampradaya, etc. But we have to understand that Mahalakshmi in Vaikuntha and Chanchala Lakshmi here in the material world, not the same. If you approach Lakshmi with material desires, then you get material Lakshmi. And she'll give you blessings, but she's known as Chanchala, which means very flickering. How often do we see people make their fortunes and then slips through their fingers somehow or other? Lost. Sometimes in a moment. Or authorities, they take it all. You know, read in the in the news, McAfee, this internet whiz who had so many multi-millions of dollars running from the IRS for ages and ages. Well, they finally confiscated all his wealth. Ill-gotten wealth will only stay with you, if I'm correct, and remembering Chanakya Pandit says something like 7 years. Now you may get a little bit longer out of it, some people, but she doesn't stick around. Why? Because she's not interested. in your foolish desires. She'll reciprocate, but her main desire is she wants to be at the feet of the Lord and serve Him and serve His devotees. She's happy to bless devotees with bhakti. That's why she has her own sampradaya, Sri Sampradaya. She wants people to come to the lotus feet of Vishnu, who they primarily worship in Ramanujacharya's sampradaya. So anyway, this is Laxmi Devi. Srila Prabhupada has told us, has instructed us that we're worshiping Radha and Krishna, but actually we're not qualified to worship Radha and Krishna. We're performing sadhana bhakti in the stage of bondage. We're still influenced by the modes of material nature, and thus, according to regulated devotional service under the shelter of the spiritual master Laxmi Narayan, they will accept this service. So, good to keep the glorious position of Laxmi Devi in perspective. Now we go to the big point of the purport and verse is that Krishna is not attached to Laxmi Devi, or we have the where's that other verse? As he said to Uddhava, I'm not attached to Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Sankarshan, the goddess of fortune, nor indeed my own self as I am to you. The pure devotees of Krishna have captured Krishna. They are in his heart because he is in their heart. There's some wonderful verses here by Narayan to Durvasa Muni after he offended Ambarish Maharaj, trying to get shelter and safety from the Sudarshan who was going to punish him for offending the very dear devotee of the Lord. So Narayan told him that I'm completely under the control of my devotees. This is 9.463. I'm completely under the control of my devotees. Indeed, I'm not at all independent. Because my devotees are completely devoid of material desires, I sit only within the cores of their hearts. What to speak of my dear devotee? Even those who are devotees of my devotee are very dear to me. I always feel very enlivened when I hear that. Because I'm no devotee, but I'm aspiring to be a servant of the devotee. And Krishna appreciates such aspirants are very dear to him. O best of the Brahmanas, without saintly persons for whom I'm the only destination, I do not desire to enjoy my transcendental bliss and supreme opulences, Laxmi Devi being part of them. Since pure devotees give up their homes, wives, children, relatives, riches, and even their lives simply to serve me without any desire for material improvement in this life or in the next, how can I give up such devotees at any time? It's stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam that the Lord's devotees in Vaikuntha, they're very dear to him. Any and all who have love for him, he has love for them. But he especially has love for the pure unalloyed devotees in this material world. Why? Because apparently they go through so much struggle. Prahlad Maharaj being a perfect example. The Pandavas another example. Why? But to the devotees, they simply take it as Krishna's mercy, however he wants to deal with me. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his song says, embrace me or kill me, I'm yours, do with me as you like. Whatever pleases you, that is my greatest happiness, even when I apparently have to undergo suffering according to the mind and body. The unalloyed devotees don't identify with the mind and body. They've transcended it because they're absorbed in constant remembrance of the Lord and service to the Lord, glorification of the Lord, sharing those glories to make others absorbed in Krishna's service. But Krishna glorifies his devotees, and because of the struggle that the unalloyed devotees of this material world, they're not really in the material world. I quote it so often, Mahatmanas Tamam Partha Daivim Prakriti Ashrita. They're directly under Srimati Radharani's shelter, the pleasure potency of Krishna. They're not, pure devotional service is not of this world. Pure unalloyed devotees are not in this world, controlled by this world. They're in the lap of Krishna. But apparently it looks like they undergo so much, and they do. It's a fact. It's going on. So we can see how the Lord loves to glorify his devotees who surrender completely to him and with patience and determination push on the spreading of the Lord's glories and services. This is the aspiration of any sincere devotee. They want to become recognized by the spiritual master. They want to become trained up. Haven't said it in a long time, but that nice quote that Vaish heard a Christian minister say, I live to be corrected. This is the attitude of a servant. If there's some way I can improve my service, then please, don't even think twice. You're my master, I'm your servant. You're meant to correct me. You're meant to chastise me. You're meant to tell me what to do and not what, and what not to do. I don't want any other relationship. It would be Maya. Unwanted. So we want to become recognized by Guru and Gauranga. We should want to become recognized. And the way that takes place is by giving one's life in the mission of the spiritual master and the Lord. One who does like that very quickly becomes blessed, becomes recognized by the Lord. Being blessed, they become purified and they develop the attachment for these glories that we're hearing about. They develop a taste for these glories. They come to the point where they can't help but think about, talk about, hear about these glories. Satatam kirtiyantas ma. That's the business of the Mahatmas, the pure devotees. No other business. They have no desire for anything stale, pale, putrid of this world relating to sense gratification of the body and mind. They have no desire. They can't forget their obligation to the Supreme Lord for even a single moment. And this attachment, this taste, this ecstasy, this love, the ever-developing bhakti, the relationship between the Lord and his devotee, is completely spiritual. As the Lord is completely spiritual, what was the word? Swapurna. Similarly, the devotee is completely spiritualized, spiritual in his unalloyed service to the Lord. Without surrendering to the pleasure potency of the Lord, one doesn't develop the qualities of pleasing service to the Lord. Srila Prabhupada in the Nectar Devotion says, to perform devotional service means to follow in the footsteps of Radharani and the devotees in Vrindavan, to follow in the footsteps of Radharani, comma. And devotees in Vrindavan put themselves under the care of Radharani in order to achieve perfection in their devotional service. In other words, devotional service is not an activity of the material world. It's directly under the control of Radharani. Bhagavad Gita, it's confirmed that the Mahatmas are great souls under the protection of Daivi Prakriti, the internal energy, Radharani. So being directly under the control of the internal potency of Krishna, devotional service attracts even Krishna himself. This is part of the purport of attracting Krishna. Devotional service is the only means in which one can attract Krishna. And because the Lord cannot give up the association of His devotees, the loving reciprocation between He and His devotees, this is proof of how great this process of devotional service is. It can attract even the Supreme Personality of Godhead. God is great, but devotional service is greater than God because it attracts Him. People who are not in devotional service can never understand what great value there is in rendering service to the Lord. So, primarily in the beginning, our connection with Srimati Radharani, besides hearing the pastimes from Srimad Bhagavatam, the glories that are scantily mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, but which the Acharyas have highlighted and shared with us to our great fortune. Like when Maharaj was talking about Baladev Vidyabhushana on Sunday morning, he didn't mention that the Sri Vaishnavas took the deity of Radharani off the altar away from Govindaji. They don't know the glories of Srimati Radharani, that she's the supreme goddess, the fountainhead of all other goddesses, consorts of Vishnu, Narayan, etc. Can you imagine the anxiety that would have caused the king and the Gaudiya Vaishnavas there in Jaipur? Like somebody comes and takes Radharani off the altar, Governor Newsom says, "Hey, you can't worship Radharani for indefinitely." Moving goalposts. Can you imagine? So they don't understand Srimati Radharani's position. Only because of the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and his empowered representative, Srila Rupa Goswami, do we understand these things. And in the beginning, it's through the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We're begging for the mercy of the Lord's consort, begging to be allowed to engage in her master's service. Ultimately, Gaudiya means servants of the Shakti of the Lord, Srimati Radharani. You have those who are called Shaktas and they worship, expansions. I didn't get down to Maya Devi is also she comes from Srimati Radharani. She's just an expansion. And she has a service wherein she, thankless service. She regrets her service sometimes. Begged Lord Chaitanya, give me some mercy. I'm always in the backside. I'm considered the darkness. You're in the light. Darkness doesn't exist in light. And feeling so bad about her fallen position, will I ever get your mercy? And he goes, what are you talking about? This is when he's talking to her in Simantini Dweep. He said, I see you as non-different from Srimati Radharani. You're just performing your service here in this material world. So even Parvati, Maya Devi, all the different names that she has, the consort of Lord Shiva, she's a great Vaishnavi. That's one of her names. She's been instructed how to worship Lakshmi Narayan by her husband Shiva, Sita Ram by her husband Shiva, even Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by her husband, and she got initiation from Haridas Thakur into Krishna's names in worship. So all these feminine potencies of the Lord, they can benedict us. But we primarily focus on the internal energies of the Lord, the spiritual energies. Respect is given to one and all. Lord Shiva and his consort, oh my goodness, the guardians of this material world. Without their permission, who gets out? Both being great Vaishnavas, they want to see us escape. They want us to join the family of Vishnu Bhaktas, Krishna Bhaktas, Gaura Bhaktas. So we don't take these things sentimentally. We chant Hare Krishna, understanding what this plea, this prayer is. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had this incredible statement, and I tried looking it up real quick, but I didn't have much time preparing for this class with the Sunday evening class. But he says, one who wants to achieve the darshan of Srimati Radharani's feet, you don't have to go any further than Sri Guru Charana Padma. For one who is blessed by the mercy of Guru, they can realize that the spiritual master is non-different from Srimati Radharani. He is a manifestation of her mercy within this world to benedict us with the service of her master, of Srimati Radharani's master. He said this is so esoteric and can't be understood unless one has been blessed by the best and is in the mood of the conjugal service of Krishna and his maidservants. But how mind-blowing that is. But even on our platform is Sadhaka Bhaktas. Text 8 of the Upadeshamrita says that the essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time, 24 hours a day, in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form, qualities, and eternal pastimes, thereby gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way, one should reside in Vraj, Goloka Vrindavan, or any embassy of the holy dhams where Radha and Krishna are served, and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees who are deeply attached to his devotional service. So in sadhana bhakti, Guru is such an exalted devotee. Definitely the gurus, either Guru can connect us to the Paramahamsa and the previous acharyas, or he has his own realization, face-to-face service with Krishna. They can connect us. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's comment as follows upon this verse. The verse being from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. A devotee should always reside in the transcendental realm of Vraj and always engaged in Krishna Smarna Janam Chasya Preshtam, remembrance of Sri Krishna and his beloved associates. By following the footsteps of such associates and by entering under their eternal guidance, one can acquire an intense desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Another verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. In the transcendental realm of Vraj, one should serve the Supreme Lord Krishna with a feeling similar to that of his associates. One should place himself under the direct guidance of a particular associate of Krishna, should follow in his footsteps. This method is applicable both in the stage of sadhana, spiritual practices executed while in the stage of bondage, and in the stage of sadhya, God realization, when one is a Siddha Purusha or a spiritually perfect soul. Now we hear Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur commenting as follows on this verse. One who has not yet developed interest in Krishna consciousness should give up all material motives and train his mind by following the progressive regulative principles, namely chanting and remembering Krishna and his name, form, quality, pastimes, and so forth. In this way, after developing a taste for such things, one should try to live in Vrindavan and pass his time constantly remembering Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, and qualities under the direction and protection of an expert devotee. This is the sum and substance of all instruction regarding the cultivation of devotional service. When we become a little blessed, we realize New Govardhan is non-different than Govardhan. Giriraj Maharaj is here. Govardhan is here. Radha Giridhari, the lifter of Govardhan, is here. We're in the Dham. Everything in the home of Radha Giridhari is meant to be done for their pleasure. That should be the consciousness of the inmates, the Prabhu's living in the ashram. And under the expert guidance, learn this process of serving Krishna for his pleasure and constantly training the mind, practicing to chant while serving. Because the essence of all advice is to come to the platform of Kirtaniya Sadhari. So 16 rounds, that's the minimum. You have spare time? Read or chant. Purify the mind. Purify the tongue and ears and heart. And of course this goes in when one is, on the higher realms of Raga Bhakti, which will happen, which does develop if one has the sincerity and seriousness of purpose. Then you can start focusing on following in the footsteps of one of Krishna's family members, servants in Vraj. It's right here in Prabhupada's purport. This was distributed, 100,000 of them to the karmis and everybody else. That's the first printing, yeah. This is called Raganuga Bhakti. Spontaneous devotional service can be executed in Shantaras when one aspires to be like Krishna's cows, or the stick or the flute in the hand of Krishna, or the flowers around Krishna's neck. Remember that quote we heard not too long ago? Being conscious entities, lovers of Krishna, Krishna conscious entities in Vraj, but in Shantaras, if the flower is there and nobody's there to pick them and string them, they can string themselves into a garland for Krishna's pleasure. Nothing to sneeze at. In the Dasharas, one follows in the footsteps of servants like Chitraka, Patraka, or Raktaka, to be able to bathe the Lord, to dress the Lord, to do any menial service for the Lord. They're in ecstasy, fully satisfied. In the friendly Sakyaras, one can become a friend like Baladev, Sridama, or Sudama. I mean, such intimacy. Krishna, Prabhupada in this purport is talking about, Krishna can't leave these devotees. They're so intimate. They serve him in ways that nobody of Vaikuntha or less can do. When Krishna is sleeping, it's amazing. In the material realm, it would be considered extreme sleep deprivation. But in the spiritual world, in Goloka, Krishna sleeps very, very little. Catches a nap in the afternoon, maybe. But as soon as the sun goes down, he's gone home, he's had his dinner, bathed and had his dinner and been put to rest by his mother. As soon as everybody's eyes are shut, out the door to associate with Srimati Radharani and her maidservants. And they spend all night serving each other in intimate pastimes of love. At the very end, they become tired and lie in each other's embrace for a very, very, very short time. And then all of a sudden the sun starts to rise, and the parrots, the peacocks, the deer, the one very blessed deer, and Vrinda Devi, and the Sakis, and the Manjaris are all trying, wake up, wake up. The sun's rising. You're going to be found out. Your elders, they're going to start coming on the paths. They'll see you going home. You have to go home. Please. Well, they're in complete bliss in each other's company, and the thought of separating is worse than death. But first they have to open their eyes. Not easy to do. But when he's gone home, he's jumped in bed, gets a couple of winks, and then Mother Yasoda's coming and waking him up. And Yoga Maya, Purnamasi is there. She's anxiously run to get the darshan of Krishna after doing her morning puja. And they're waking him up, and he wakes up, and it's hard to awaken him, but his friends, which was the point how I got in bridge segued into this. His friends, they've gotten up. They've met in the courtyard of King Nanda, and they are so intimately connected with Krishna. They're going, "Come on, Wake up! It's time to milk the cows. What are you doing? I could go on with more Leela. It's so sweet, but I won't. But anyway, that's the Sakya Ras. Then you have the parental Ras. You can become, it's characterized by Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yasoda. Or, of course, Madhurya Ras, characterized by conjugal love. One can become like, meaning the service attitude, following in the footsteps. The example is Srimati Radharani or her lady friends such as Lalita and her serving maids Manjaris like Rupa and Rati. This is the essence of all instruction in the matter of devotional service. You hear those kind of statements, you should take note. This is the essence of all instruction in the matter of devotional service. This is where it's leading. That's what's being offered to us. And of course we keep these matters high above our head. I don't know the Bengali saying that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would often quote, but our Vaidhi Bhakti is done with the aspiration that we be allowed, that we get the mercy of Krishna's intimate servants and associates and be allowed to enter into that entourage, the family and friends of Krishna, to eternally serve him for his pleasure. Any questions or comments?
What about our friend? Is he out there?
We'll find out.
Vijay? Okay.
Yes, I am here.
All right, just wait a second, because I wanted to give something, then you can be on.
Thank you, Dravidas.
If you would allow me, Prabhu, in the series of verses you were quoting from Narayan, as he's speaking to Durvasa Muni, there's one that is most famous, and I'd like to just share it. It's the last one. Sadhavovadayam mayam sadhunamradayam tvaham madanyate najananti naham tebyo managapi. The pure devotee is always within the core of my heart, and I am always in the heart of the pure devotee. My devotees do not know anything else but me, and I do not know anyone else but them. That's text 68, 9468.
Thank you for sharing that last
I thought, because that's
pearl.
Yeah, it's a wonderful verse.
Prabhupada
would quote that.
Wonderful instructions. Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Rajendranandana Prabhu. The quote is as follows from the translation. Quote, "Where is that person who is actually grateful and will not worship the personality of Godhead?" End quote. So my question is related to the two words, actually grateful. My humble understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that to be actually grateful is to be grateful towards the ones who are in need of our gratitude. And as far as I know, Lord Krishna, being God, and because he's God, he's self-sufficient, he's not in need of anything, even in need of my gratitude. So my question is, why isn't that to be grateful towards God through worshiping him is a waste of energy?
Oh! I know you know that's not the conclusion, but you're trying to get me to share some nectar. Krishna doesn't need anything, but he simultaneously, inconceivably, wants nothing but the loving reciprocation from his devotees. That's what he lives for. Krishna and Vrindavan, that's what he lives for. And, one who's actually grateful, of course, will surrender to Krishna, will give their life, their words, their thoughts, their activities, their Lakshmi, etc., in the service of the Lord. How can they not? because Krishna is our everything, our dearmost treasure, best friend, completely captivating one whom we love. But when I read that line of the verse, I thought of that verse in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam where it says, and I paraphrase, that when one chants the holy names of the Lord but does not experience the symptoms of hair rising on end, rising, or tears flowing from the eyes, or the heart melting, then we can understand that such a devotee has a steel-framed heart. So even though we are understood to be a devotee and are dear to the Lord through our taking shelter of His devotee, technically on our own strength we are aspiring devotees, or mixed devotees. And if the shoe fits, then you wear it. But, that is the case for the neophyte devotees, still under the influence of the modes of nature, the contamination to give significance to the desires that pop up, trying to enjoy separate from Krishna's service. So, no, the grateful devotees will always render service to Krishna. Krishna wants that service. We just got through hearing that I'm not interested in Brahma, Shiva, my brother Sankarshan, my wife Laxmi Devi, none of them, as much as I'm totally captivated by the love and the service rendered by my unalloyed devotees. He said, even my own sweet transcendental beauty and opulences, they mean nothing to me if I could not have the loving reciprocation of my devotees. Does that shed some light on it?
Rajendranandana Prabhu, if I may say so, spectacular answer to my question. Hare Krishna.
You're very kind.
Raj, if I can give a little editorial input on this. There's maybe the question, maybe and maybe not, but when I read this during the class, I read along with you.
The verse?
That last sentence of the translation.
Okay.
I thought that it's not it may not completely convey the idea that Prabhupada is conveying. Did you notice that? I think listen, if I would move something around a little bit. Where is that actually grateful person who will not worship the personality of Godhead?
Yeah, it's implied.
Is that?
If you are grateful, of course you will worship.
Yeah. The thing is that it's the who needs to be moved over, I think. And anyway, that's my editorial view of that. But I thought maybe that was one of the things that gave him puzzlement there on that last side.
Thank you. You have no... What ungrateful devotee will not worship the Lord and enter into His devotional service? Actually, a devotee cannot forget his obligation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead even for a single moment. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much, Prabhus. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ke, Srila Prabhupada ke, Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ke.